My name is Joe Madden, and today I'm going to be talking to you about one of HP's newer products, Virtualization Performance Viewer, or vPV for short. vPV represents one of the newer types of solutions HP's been coming out in the last couple of years. I think the things I want to highlight today is just how easy it is to install while having an enterprise strength. You'll see how quick and easy it is, but it's also got the backbone of Vertica from its acquisition a couple of years in the back end. It's very easy to configure, delivering what we're all looking for in that quick time to value. It represents a multi-vendor virtualization management platform, but really that's only the start. It's what HP promotes, but from our perspective, the thing that we really like is its full depth in monitoring from top to bottom. It does a very good job in server monitoring. The advanced analytics and reporting that comes out of the box really helps drive quick and meaningful action, and it's very affordable relative to the value and the work it takes to get this set up. So let's just talk about the basic setup. It's a VM appliance, very simple. As I mentioned earlier, it runs Vertica as a database, which is very simple and powerful. For configuring, it's vCenter, hostname, username, password, that's it. Data collection begins automatically. And then for the intra-VM monitoring, you're deploying a simple agent, and out of the box, it doesn't even have authentication set up, so if you are okay with that, it just simply works. So let's talk about deployment. As I said, it's an OVA file, so those of you who are familiar with doing that, you go File, Deploy OVF Template, and you just go through the process. Pretty simple forward. HP has an accept the EULA. Go through, pick, they give you the small, medium, large. We chose small. We've got about 200 VMs in the environment we're going to show you. Pick the location. We're running a 3PAR environment in our VMware environment. And it's just pretty straightforward. You have the option of letting DHCP run things, or you can hard code things in your network setting. And then we typically start with power on not checked because we want to snap it before we configure. And that's it. 20 minutes later, you have a web UI to do the configuration. Very little need to go into the command line to do much. And given that it's a VM, you can bounce the server through vCenter if you want to. So adding vCenters is pretty straightforward. You put the host name, credentials, test connection, proves out, add. The minute you add it, it goes out there, discovers the environment, and starts the data collection immediately. Hyper-V is pretty much the same way, except for Hyper-V, you need to add a piece of code to facilitate that collection, but it's pretty straightforward as well. But as I alluded to, this is really more than just about virtualization. You can see it picks up other VM technologies, as KVM, Xen, actually plugs into OpenStack. Being an HP product, it also plugs into OneView, and it also will just go straight into physical servers. So we can do and actually leverage the monitoring capability of vPV with physical servers. So once you get that, again, pretty straightforward. You don't have to use agents to do the intra-server management and monitoring. But if you want to get that deeper level monitoring, what they have done is taken the old Glance Plus, refactored it, and giving you a very lightweight agent to be able to deploy. You can download those packages here and manually deploy them to the managed nodes you want to look at. And voila, out of the box, here you go. This is the dashboard view. There's a couple views here. You can see a distribution of memory versus CPU on both your VMs and your hosts, so you can quickly see where are my problem areas and drill into those. And then a different view is kind of more of a heat map perspective, and again, you can go from data center down to the VMs. You can quickly see CPU. Again, the idea here is very quick time to recognition of where my problem area is. And it's very context sensitive. Here we're looking at a vSphere perspective. Here we're looking at a Hyper-V perspective. And then, again, this is all out of the box with no configuration done on our part. We can quickly see what does my overall environment look like. I can see I've deployed 203 VMs. I have about 150 on, and my overall environment can facilitate about another 250 virtual machines. So, and then I go see what kind of alerts are coming through. I can see one of my blades is buried from a CPU perspective. I can quickly drill into and see what's going on. This is one of my VMs. I've over-allocated memory. It's not doing much. I've allocated 2 gigs, and I'm only actively using 34 megs. It's a test box that's not doing much, and we'll get into kind of the remediation process and value that this application gives you. There is an advanced level setup that you can do after you kind of get the value out of this. You can configure LDAP authentication, so for production you probably would want to leverage this. HTTPS communication between those agents and the vPV management server is certainly possible. You can configure groups for logical bundling of VMs, so for like business units or applications or locations. And then there's integrations into things like OMI and the Ops Bridge for those HP customers that leverage those tools, or HP's cloud and system automation tool that would help facilitate optimized VM deployments. The part that really captured our attention with this was the server management piece. It's very easy to discover hotspots in your environment. It provides quick access to multiple layers of actionable information, and it gives you deep real-time intra-VM monitoring. So here you can see, in the context of our VMware environment, I can see the 3 data centers that I have in our environment. I can see that here's our production environment, and based on the CPU metric, I'm running at about 40% CPU utilization. I've got a total of 140 VMs running across that. I can right mouse click, drill into that, and see how many ESX hosts I'm running. This particular blade, blade 4, I'm running at about 73, 74%. I've got 16 cores. I can right mouse click, drill down again, and these are all the VMs that I'm running against that. So I can very quickly see what the environment's like, where I'm at. I can go into the individual servers and see what's going on there. So let's do that. And this MPS server, it's a network management reporting server. I can right mouse click into that. So this is what I get out of the agent. And this is really, for you old HPUX folks, it's a refactored Glance Plus, and it's comparable to CollectD or StatsD type metrics. It's processing out of the box every 5 seconds. It's tunable to 1 second. You can configure that, and it's collecting across multiple domains. So this is kind of a clever little heat map. It shows that DB ping is the process that's the most busy, most being utilized. I can go across the tab. I can see what processes are being used heavily, CPU, disk, do I have I/O issues, are my disks full, how about network, applications, what processes are being heavily used, and I can get a read on syslogs and what's going on there. So very quick, deep picture on what's going on my actual VM to know how I'm doing and how I'm performing, and you can see we're fairly stable there. And then I can also look, and this is based on deploying an agent, but I can also get very good information if I choose not to deploy an agent. I can see, and this is information that's pulled out of like vCenter, I can see memory usage, disk I/O. Again, this is customizable, but these are out-of-the-box reports with no configuration done on our part, and gone from there. So the next piece, and this is the part that really drives value from helping you become more efficient and extending resources, is the analytics and reporting piece. We're using the native Vertica analytics pieces that come with that. There's a very rich set of reporting that comes out of the box, and then it does provide very proactive forecasting functionality. So part of what you get at the VM level, and when one of those right mouse click reports, is an individual report on an individual VM. So on this particular one, it's the one we were looking at earlier, it will show you performance over time, and it will basically, through its analytic engine, basically say, here's what's configured and here's what's recommended. So we've right-sized on CPU, but you can see here we've over-allocated on memory, and it recommends on what it should be, and provides you a rich set of details on where you should be to help you be more efficient in the use of both CPU and memory on your devices. here's an example of when I first started using this about a month ago where we were at. And again, without much configuration, we were able to show I had 3 blades that were basically at 0 days of capacity. So I had 3 of my machines that were pretty much maxed out, 2 on memory and 1 on CPU. And after about a month of slowly tweaking away at CPU and memory, I've got now my VM host 3 is greater than 90 days of capacity on both CPU and memory. I still have an issue with VM host 4. I haven't been as aggressive on my tuning there. And on VM host, or blade 2, I've been able to extend that. So through the use of that, I've been able to really extend the functionality and usability of my hardware, and therefore pushing off, the inevitable buy I'm going to have to provision more hardware. How was I able to do that? Well, you go to the capacity report. You can see here on the memory side, I'm running 150 VMs powered on, and I have 120 of them that are over-provisioned. On the CPU side, I have 110 CPUs that are over-provisioned. So nearly 2/3 of my powered-on VMs are over-provisioned on both CPU and memory. And so basically we can drill into the report, and I can see which machines are over-provisioned and by how much. And so as I go to each one, actually one of my vCenter servers is heavily over-provisioned on the memory side. And so what basically we've been doing is slowly chipping away, and through each one of these machines going from 8 to 4 gigs, and just chipping away at that and continuing to drill down. And we haven't just dramatically taken everything at face value. There's been a few machines where if we went too far, we had trouble, starting and having run efficiently. But we've been chipping away at that and seeing great results. And then occasionally you look at something that's undersized and you see something that's currently at 4, needs to be at 5. And after you've reconfigured and recaptured 60 gigs of memory, giving something back a gig is really not that big of a deal. And then on the analytics side, you can very quickly and easily see things like memory, disk usage. The interesting thing is you would expect a positive slope, as you see here. As we add more machines and as we grow, you expect to run out of memory. This has been very interesting to watch. There's been a couple phenomenon at play here. We've been killing VMs that have been stagnant as we've looked here. We've been shrinking memory usage. We've added more vCenters. We've added Hyper-V. As we've added capacity into the system, you've seen the lines change here of the actuals. And as we've deleted machines, the unusual thing you would expect is not a negative slope on your disk usage. So there's some phenomenon or reality that are still working its way through. But you can see the advanced analytics piece here where they're using calculations to figure out where you're going to run out of capacity, and they're using multiple models to approach that. And as any of you who remember your statistics will know, R squared, the higher that R squared value is, the higher the validity, the predictability. These are pretty low R squareds, which shouldn't surprise you when you look at the actual data versus the curves. But our expectation is as soon as we settle down and give it another couple weeks worth of data, we should start to see curves and dates and durations that are going to help us be much more accurate in our forecasts. So to recap, what we see in vPV that we really like is just how easy it was to set up, to configure. The fact that it's covering multiple vendor virtualization technology and things like OneView and OpenStack and individual servers. The monitoring that's out of the box is very rich and very easy to set up. And then the reporting that gave us things to really help drive the managing of both the intra-VM servers as well as the virtual environment that we were trying to manage. And then the value that we see is, what it costs versus what it takes to manage and get going. We're very good. In further versions of this series on vPV, we'll talk about deeper analytics, customizing the monitoring, and further ways to extend the value of what we can do with vPV. Thank you very much.